부탁드리겠습니다.
Thank you. So let's talk about some solutions. We brought up some of the trends and some of the problems in our previous session. Let's now begin to solve some of these problems. And I'm not going to preach to you as much as I would like to, but I am going to give you a passage that I think is very important. It's Matthew 24:14. And the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world so that, and I've underlined it here, all nations will hear it, and then the end will come. All nations. Now, in the Greek, what are we talking about? Panta ta ethne. All the nations. The church, your church, my church, every church, is designed by God to cross every boundary. This could be geopolitical boundaries. This could be ethno-linguistic people groups. But it's deeper than that. It's more than that. We are made by God to be saved by God. We are saved by God to be sent by God. We are a people who are redeemed and on a mission. And in order for the good news to be preached throughout the whole world, all the nations, we have to be the ones to do it. And we're going to have to cross a lot of boundaries. There are some who are called cross-culturally. They will learn another language. They will be a missionary. And a missionary is someone who crosses boundaries with the purpose of communicating the gospel of Jesus and making disciples. But in many ways, we are all missionaries, and I don't want to take away from those who are called cross-culturally, because that is a very special calling. But in many ways, we're all missionaries. And we've got to cross that line from our house to our neighbor's house. That little boundary right there. Which is sometimes the most difficult line to cross, right? The one that takes you right to the neighbor next door. So this is more than just lines on a map. It's more than language and socioeconomics and ethnicity. This is the calling that if God puts someone in front of us, it doesn't matter who it is, we should be willing to share Jesus with that person. Because notice, it doesn't say that the gospel will be preached. Or it doesn't say that the gospel should be, excuse me. It doesn't say that the gospel might be preached. It says that the gospel will be preached. This is our responsibility. So the Great Confession reminds us that Jesus is central to everything. The Great Commandment reminds us that we are to love God with everything we have and to love our neighbor as ourselves. The Great Commission reminds us to make disciples of all nations, and God's going to be with us the whole way. I call this verse the great confidence that the church will go and that the people will hear it. The Great Commandment and the Great Commission are commands. But Matthew 24:14 is a promise. You are God's promise to the nations. My church is God's promise to the nations. We've got 2 mission groups. We're constantly sending mission groups out to different cultures. We need to get to Korea. That's what we need to do. But I think we're in Peru and Guatemala this week. That's where we've got our mission groups. And we're sending whole families. We send entire families on a mission trip. Why? Because we believe that the good news about the kingdom needs to be preached so that all the nations will hear it. You are God's promise to your neighbors. You are God's promise to the nations. Let me tell you about a boundary that I had to cross. It was my neighbor. So I moved to Bradenton, Florida in 2015. And I had a young family. I guess we're not so young anymore, but 10, 11 years ago we were. And, there's a truck outside. I'm moving furniture in. The for sale sign had come down. It's clear that we are the new neighbors. So everyone comes out. We start talking. And we exchange the typical pleasantries, just the normal things. Hey, where are you from? How long have you been here? And then my neighbor Tamara, as I learned her name, asked me a very simple question. And it's a question that comes with two different reactions whenever I tell people the answer. So she asked me, she goes, well, Sam, what do you do for a living? You know where I'm going with this. I heard you chuckle. And I said, well, I'm a pastor. Now, people respond one of two ways. Oh, that's positive. Or they respond, oh. Same word, but it's negative. She responded in a way that I've never had happen before nor since. She put up her finger. When I said I'm a pastor, she put up her fingers with an X, started backing away, and hissed at me. So I said, Tamara, I'm a pastor, not a vampire. Guess what? She came to know Jesus Christ as her Lord and Savior. Because people were willing to share Jesus with her. We moved to a different location because my family is growing and I needed a bigger house. And so I didn't get a chance to I didn't stay at that house. But I did see her recently at the veterinarian. And she was bringing in her dog to put the dog down, unfortunately. And I was just talking with her, and I was trying to comfort her about her dog, but I was like, Tamara, how are you doing? And she said, not good. My son was brutally murdered, and it's been very, very difficult on me. Now, that was a divine appointment. What if I had not been obedient when I was moving in to talk to her? I would have never had the opportunity to share with her the way that I did to comfort her about her son. So we always need to be looking for opportunities, praying for opportunities that God would put people in front of us so that we can share the gospel. But how do you lead your church to do that? So let's walk through some of this. So here are 7 ways to take your church from a culture of stagnation to an expectation of growth. And the first thing is this. We need to redefine what success is. Because you'll read magazines and articles and reports and books about all of these churches that grew from 10 to 10,000 people. And that is a good story. Those are fun stories to read, but they're not normal. You can't replicate that. That is a very unusual story. So we need to redefine success, not that our church grew by 10-fold, but that our effort grew by 10-fold. Now let me explain. There are lead metrics and there are lag metrics. The lag metric is the result. The lead metric is the effort. So when you say, hey, my church has doubled in size, praise God, that's the lag metric. That's the result. I want to know, how did you do that? Well, we sent out 20 people into the community once a week, and we shared Jesus, and we invited our friends. That's the lead metric. You see, God is the one who is responsible for the lag metric. God's the one that does that. He's the one that saves. He's the one that provides the growth. But we still have a responsibility to do the work. So we need to redefine success. It's not that, I hope your church grows, but it's that my people are inviting their friends. They're sharing their faith. They're doing the work of the lead metrics, the effort involved. And I believe that when churches put forth the effort, God will then bless. So, how many invites are your people making? Are you asking them to invite their friends? Are you teaching them how to share their faith? I'm blessed to have a staff now at my church. We're not all full-time. About half of us are part-time, half of us are full-time. But I have a meeting every week with them, and the first thing, I have a standing agenda, and the first thing on the standing agenda is gospel conversations. And I expect somebody on my team to speak up about a gospel conversation that they had with somebody. So I expect it on my team, I expect it in my church, that every week we're talking about how we shared our faith. And I don't think that that's a burden at all. I think we should have, if I've got a whole team, somebody on my team hopefully shared their faith that week. That's the lead metric. Let's focus on success being the lead metric, not the lag metric. It's not that your church grew by 50. I hope it does. It's that your people and you put in the work, and then God blessed through that work. So that's one way to change the culture. It's just to focus on the actual work instead of the goal. Please have goals. You should have goals. But it's the work that matters. And then celebrate. All right, so God brought some people. Celebrate that. Now, and it took us a while. Hear me out. It took me 10 years of doing this at my church. It doesn't happen automatically. Now I've got people, they bring up their friends to me after every service. Hey, I brought my friend. Hey, I brought my friend. Hey, I brought my friend. Well, and then we celebrate that. We have been celebrating that. So I talk about it in the worship services. When I preach, and again, I usually ask for somebody's permission if I'm going to use their name in my sermon. But I tell stories, and I'll let the church know that this is how we define success. That you invited your friend, even if your friend didn't come. The fact that you made the effort to invite is what's important. The fact that you shared Jesus is what's important. And so we celebrate it. At a church in Murray, Kentucky. I've pastored in Kentucky twice, and forgive me if you do this. I don't mean to be offensive at all, but at my church in Kentucky, they began the service, every single week, with death announcements, like everyone that had died. And granted, we wanted to let people know that's important, but I said that's probably not the best way to begin a worship service, because what you celebrate, you become. And I don't want to become death, so we needed to change that, and we changed the way we start our service. We started celebrating the things that we wanted to become. So redefine success. It's all about the effort that you make, not necessarily the results. God's going to have to provide the results, and then when God does, you celebrate those, and you tell those stories, and you bring it to the surface, because what you celebrate, you become. And I mentioned this earlier in the previous session, but I'll bring it up here again. You may say, well, my whole church won't do that. You know what? My whole church won't do anything. The whole church. I am loved as a pastor. I am respected as a pastor. My church listens to me. But even so, I can't get all of them to do everything I want them to do. That'll never happen. So I work with the willing. I work with those who are willing to partner with me. And it may be a small group at first. It may be 1, 2, or 3. But let me tell you, you get 2 or 3 families doing gospel work, and it can go a long way. So don't be discouraged If you're like, well, I wanted the whole church to do this, but only 4 or 5 people did it. The last time I checked, Jesus had 12 disciples. They made a lot of mistakes along the way, and those 12 disciples, through their work, turned the world upside down. Like, why not today? Why not your community? Why not your church? 5, 10, 12 can make a huge difference. Just work with the willing. Start there. By the way, when success happens, it's contagious. When people see the result, like, oh wow, this effort's really working, then they get on board. There's always people that come late to the party, but that's okay. That's all right. I'm happy for them to move in and do what they need to do, even if it's late. So work with the willing. The other thing that's important is this ongoing quality programming. I mentioned this in the question that was asked about rhythms. Rhythms and patterns are so important. The baseball coach, the soccer coach expects you to be at all the practices. If you want to learn to play the piano, guess what? You have to show up to all the teaching sessions. If you want to if you have artistic ability, you've got to practice, and you've got to do that regularly. So there's this idea, you go to school every morning. There is this idea that if you want to see people grow, they have to do something often. That is certainly the case of the church. I tell my church all the time. I tell them, church attendance is like exercise. If you do it once or twice a year, it's gonna hurt. It's going to hurt. But you do exercise often, weekly, you get stronger. Church is no different. So I tell my people, I expect you here Sundays and Wednesdays. Now, we're not mean about it, and we're not kicking people out of the church if they miss a few here and there. Of course not. But it is an expectation. 100 people every week is better than 500 people once a month. 100 people every week is better than 500 people once a month. Ongoing quality programming, rhythms and patterns. Build your church into the schedule of your people. And then resource the ministries that are most focused on the youngest generations. Now this is hard. This is hard. But one of the things that I do when I do a consultation is I look at the church budget. And I check out the church budget, and I add up the children's ministry and the student ministry. So there's typically a line item for high school, middle school, and then children's, and then sometimes preschool too. And so it's 18 and under. It's the amount of money that the church is investing into those 18 and under. And then I compare it to the worship budget. Now, if you're a worship pastor in here, don't cut the worship pastor's budget. I'm not saying that. That worship pastor's doing good work too. But really, your children's ministry, your student ministry, the number should be equal to or higher than the worship ministry. And almost always, when I see a church that has a very low budget for children and students, almost always that is an unhealthy church. So you have to resource these ministries. Do you resource evangelism? Do you have an evangelism line item in your budget? Are you investing? Are you spending the money on the things that you want to do? Well, I want to grow with young families. I want to do more work like outreach and evangelism. Are you investing in those things? So even if you're starting small, start somewhere. Like, we don't even have an evangelism budget. If that's you, okay, start small. Start with something. We had to. We didn't even have an evangelism budget when I got to my church. And I was like, how do we? So I asked for it, and the church was like, sure, okay, let's try. And you know what? Not everything worked, but we kept trying, and we kept trying, and we resourced those things. And then the things that did work, we resourced them even more. So you have to invest in the areas that are going to draw in the youngest generations. If you're not investing in it, why would you think that you're going to see any sort of success? And your culture does this so great. The Korean culture, hospitality. I've been overwhelmed here. It's great. It's wonderful. The flowers are gorgeous. Whoever did that, and wow. That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. Nobody has ever given me flowers. That is the first time. That is the first time. And I think it's great. Use that to your advantage. If that is a strength of your church and a strength of your culture, use that to your advantage. Let me give you. A lot of you are in smaller churches. And by smaller, we're talking 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe 100. And granted, you get up to 100, and that's not even really a small church anymore. You're getting into a mid-sized church, but let's just go with this. So I'm a big Tampa Bay Rays fan. It's a baseball team. If you don't know baseball, Major League Baseball, you have the Dodgers here, right? And man, what a team. What a team. I like watching Dodgers games. It's maybe one of the best Major League Baseball teams that have ever been assembled. I mean, truly impressive. It's going to be the Rays and the Dodgers in the World Series. You just watched 2020 rematch. You beat us in 2020. I'd love a rematch. I would love a rematch. So I go to Tropicana Field. You may go to Dodger Stadium. There's another team here, Angels or something. I don't know. They have Mike Trout. By the way, there's talks of us getting Mike Trout at the Tampa Bay Rays. It won't happen. When the Angels come and visit Tropicana Field, we do the chant "Free Mike Trout" because we want him. We want Mike Trout. Anyway, I go to Tropicana Field. There's 20,000 people. You go to Dodger Stadium, 60,000 people, 50,000 people. When you go to Dodger Stadium, do you expect someone to go, "Sam, how's it going? Come on in"? No. You're like, I just hope I find a parking spot and I get into the game before the first inning. You want efficiency in a large venue. When I go to Tropicana Field, same thing. I expect efficiency. Just give me a hot dog and let me find a parking spot. When I go into a small restaurant, 20 seats, it's got 10 people in there, and it's a little local place. If nobody says anything to me when I walk in, that's weird. The bigger the venue, the less you expect hospitality. The smaller the venue, the more you expect hospitality. So, it's unfair, but smaller churches have to be better at hospitality than bigger churches because of that. But it's also to your advantage, because if you show hospitality, you are likely to connect with that person. And you can connect with someone on a very personal level that the large church just can't do because it's a large venue. So, the smaller you are, the more important hospitality becomes. And if you are a larger church and you can figure out how to do hospitality well, even better. It's just not an expectation at the large church. In the same way, you don't expect high levels of hospitality at Dodger Stadium. So, hospitality is a key to taking your church from a culture of stagnation to an expectation of growth. And this last one is my favorite, and I saved it for last because it is my favorite. We do a gift-giving strategy at my church. So here's how it works. And this idea came from Jenny Funderburk. You don't know her. She was on my team. She's still at our church, but got a different job. And she came up with this idea of well, if we want to invite our friends to church, we should give them a gift. That's brilliant. Yes. So what we do is we have a team that comes up with all the ideas of the gifts that we're going to give throughout the year. And then we have another team that they're crafty. They like to put the bag and make it look pretty, and like these flowers over here, they just make it look really good. So I have another team that like puts the gift together. And then we, on a Sunday morning, we announce to everybody, all right, we have gifts this week for everyone. We have 100 or 200 or whatever we've done. We have 200 gifts this week for everyone, but they're not for you, church. They're for you to take and to give to your friends. So we're inviting people to Vacation Bible School. Just this Sunday, we had 200 like little ice pop koozies, and I can explain what that is later if you're curious. So we put a little gift together to invite kids to VBS. So on their way out are people like, hey, take 1, 2, or 3. And I saw one dude, like, he must have really liked these gifts because he had like a whole armful of them. And I was like, you better not be taking those home for yourself. Like, those are for your neighbors. And he was like, no, they're for my neighbors. They're for my neighbors. But what it does is, so you can preach to your church on Sunday and say, invite your friends. And everyone goes, yes, yes, we should. Share Jesus. Yes, yes, yeah, we should. And then Monday rolls around and no one does it. Well, if you give them something tangible, if you give your church something tangible, like a gift, and it's got a little card on it, like Vacation Bible School, Christmas Eve service, whatever it is you're inviting them to, and it sits on their counter, they start feeling guilty that they haven't done the work. And they sit there and they go, you know, I really should take this over to my neighbor. I'm going to go do. I just saw them pull in. I'm going to go do this now. So what the gift does is, obviously it's good to give gifts to people, and it doesn't have to be expensive at all. It can be very inexpensive. It can just be chocolates for Valentine's Day, just 3 or 4 chocolates, whatever it is. But what it does is it's a prompt. It's a physical prompt for someone to go talk to their neighbor and say, all right, hey, I've got this thing, you know, I'm going to invite you to our summer camp or whatever it is. And it's a little card on there, tells you all the information. We'd love to have you come to our Christmas Eve service or a special series that our pastor is doing. That gift-giving strategy works, particularly over time. We probably do 10 a year where we're creating these gifts and we send our people out. That's our ongoing evangelism emphasis. Remember earlier I said only 1% of churches have an ongoing evangelism emphasis? This is what we do. Why? Romans 10:15. How beautiful are the feet! How beautiful are the feet! There's this idea that we're messengers. It's our feet that take us to people. We've got to go to them. I am so convinced of this, that the Christian faith is just as much about using your feet as it is your mind. And hear me out. The mind is important. The study, the understanding, the discipleship, all of that is critically important. But we're not using our feet enough. A stationary church is a disobedient church. A Christian that does not move is a disobedient Christian. We've got to get on the move. We've got to be active. We've got to let our feet take us to our neighbors. Redefine success. Focus on the effort, not the results. When the results come and God gives them, celebrate it in your services. Start with just whoever will work with you. Focus on that ongoing quality program, weekly rhythms, and then resource, invest in those young family ministries, children's ministries, student ministries. Raise the level of hospitality and create an invite strategy with gifts. I think these 7 things will work. They take time, may not happen overnight, but it will work. I'll answer some questions now.
도생아도 잘 들으셨나요? 네. 이 내용이 참 저에게 도전을 주는 것 말고도 다시 한번 저희들이 복음으로 예수 그리스도를 전해야 된다는 심장을 뜨겁게 다시 하는 그런 강의인 것 같습니다. 질문은 4가지 질문이 있으셨습니다. 4가지 질문이 있으셨는데 이 2가지는 답이 되신 것 같아요. 백서경 목사님께서 가나안 성도를 어떻게 다시 교회로 모입할 것인가 질문을 설명이 된 것 같고요. 그리고 김미선 교수님께서 정치에 되어 있는 교회 문제점을 해결하기 위해 가장 중요한 것은 무엇인가? 이것도 아마 답이 아마 되시지 않으셨을까 싶습니다. 예, 개인적으로 이거는 좀 이제 서로 의견이 다를 수 있겠지만요. 예, 답해 주신 것 같고요. 최필 선교사님, 월드비전 인터내셔널 유니버시티의 최필 선교사님께서 질문해 주셨습니다. 사역자들의 영성 향상을 위한 제안을 본인 경험을 바탕으로 도전해 주십시오.
Knowing all of this, just based on your personal experience, whether your personal life or your church, please challenge us with suggestions for improving the spiritual life of ministers and leaders in that conference.
If you don't do it yourself, why would you expect your people to? Like, this is part of leadership. Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Churches focused on discipleship have pastors that are focused on discipleship. You've got to begin with you. And I know that's difficult because sometimes it can feel very lonely. Like I'm the only one doing the work. Been there. Been in those controversies, been in the tough church, dealt with tough people, yes. But you have to be obedient to God. You have to do the work yourself. Evangelism will never die in your church if you do it. So I would just say, whatever it is that you need to stay healthy spiritually, you need to do that. Because if you are not spiritually healthy as a leader, particularly as a pastor in your church isn't going to be spiritually healthy. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to seek out help. You may not want to do that in your own church. It may be that you need to talk to somebody outside of your church. You've got a great association here. Look at this, this Council of Korean Churches. I bet that there is somebody within this association, if you're like, man, I'm struggling with something, I bet there's somebody else that has very similar struggles as you. Make friends. If you don't know each other today, if anything, even if you're like, I didn't like what the speaker said, make friends today. Make connections. You're going to need each other. So part of healthy churches is a healthy network of pastors too. I've got so many friends in Bradenton. I don't compete with my friends, right? I'm not competing for people, in our churches. They're my friends. They're people I rely on. They're people I lean on. So I would just say, use today even to make a new friend, to make a connection, get each other's cell phones, and make sure that you're taking care of each other too as pastors. So if you want your church to be healthy, you're going to have to be healthy too.
네, 감사합니다. 말씀을 드리면서 굉장히 따뜻해지는 느낌이 드는 것 같습니다. 네, 협의되셨습니까, 최 목사님? 네. 오늘 한길교회에서 담임 목사님이 두 분의 부목사님들과 함께 이렇게 또 많이 참석을 해주셨는데요. 한길교회 제이슨 띠꼬아로 목사님께서 질문을 많이 주셨는데 질문 내용이 다 좋은 것 같습니다. 일단 한 가지만 먼저 질문해드리도록 하겠습니다. 세 목사님, 건강하지 못한 문화는 때로 교회 안에 존재하면서도 우리가 그것을 인식하지 못할 수 있습니다. 예를 들어 목회자들을 지나치게 과로하게 하고 목회자들에게 너무 많은 것을 요구하면서도 그들에게 충분한 보상을 하지 않는 경우가 있습니다. 지도자들은 진심으로 교회가 건강하다고 생각할 수 있지만 많은 사람들은 조용히 부담을 느끼고 자신의 목소리가 들리지 않는다고 느끼며 번아웃을 경험하거나 심지어 교회에서 멀어지기도 합니다. 성경적으로 볼 때 목회자들과 장로님들은 이러한 숨겨진 문화적 문제를 어떻게 인식할 수 있으며 성경에 따라 교회 문화를 개혁하기 위해 어떤 실체적인 단계들을 취할 수 있습니까? 네.
I guess this is a question about looking within. So Pastor Sam, sometimes a healthy culture can sometimes exist in the church without the pastor or the elders or the leaders being aware of it. For instance, overworking the pastors or leaders or even the congregation, demanding so much from them, while not really compensating for that. And leaders may think that the church might be healthy, like at a superficial level, but either people as leaders or pastor or the congregation might silently find themselves feeling burdened, unheard, or even burned out. And so I guess biblically, how can pastors and elders recognize these hidden like cultural issues, and what practical steps can they take to reform the church to either prevent or heal or repair what's happening?
Listen. And how do you listen? You sit down across a table and you have a meal with somebody. So I actually asked for a budget, my own personal budget, and it's about $500 a year, which isn't a lot if you think about it. And I just use that to take people out to lunches and breakfasts and families and just to sit down across the table and just hear them out. So part of good leadership is good listening, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with everything that they say, but for a lot of people to deal with that underlying tension, you've got to bring it to the surface. And how do you take that underlying tension and bring it to the surface in a way that's not disruptive? You deal with people one-on-one, families one-on-one, you hear them out and you listen. And most of the time, even if people don't get their way, the fact that they were heard, they're okay with it. So I would just say whatever you have to do to sit down with someone, coffee, breakfast, dinner, in your home, in their home. I take people to ball games. I'll grab my deacons. Let's go to a Tampa Bay Rays game. Now, Dodgers tickets are way more expensive than Tampa Bay Rays tickets, but if you can get your church to give you a budget for Dodgers tickets, that's amazing. Good for you. Good for you. But you just got to listen to your people. It doesn't mean that you do everything that they want you to do. Now, if someone is contentious beyond that, if they are giving you trouble beyond that, that might be a case of needing to be more involved. But most of the time, it's just a matter of listening to people, bring that tension to the surface, and usually when it gets to the surface, it evaporates.
네, 질문은 다 했는데요. 저도 이제 다음부터는 그냥 반말씀 주는 게 아니고 다저수기라도 꼭 그렇게 해야 될 것 같습니다. 정말 큰 인사이트를 주시는데 우리 다시 한번 좋은 강의 주신 시간을 마쳤고요. 이제 식사가 도착했습니까? 네, 식사 도착했고요. 그 전에 잠깐 말씀드릴 것은요. 여러분들 화장실 저쪽 뒤편으로 가시면 왼쪽에 있고요. 아직 티켓, 발리데이션 티켓 찍지 못하신 분들은 찍으시는데요. 잠깐 자리에 그대로 앉아주시고요. 단체 사진을 오늘 언론사에서 정말 많이 오셨어요. 크리스찬 투데이, 크리스찬 헤럴드, 또 기독일보, 미주 크리스천 신문, 또 어디입니까? 네. 기독일보 했습니다. 네. 기독뉴스, 네, 그리고 KCM USA 다들 오셨는데요. 오늘 사진을 다 나와서 찍으시면 좋겠지만 장소가 그렇지 않았어요. 그대로 계시면 우리 기자분들 나오셔서 사진을 좀 찍어주시면 감사하겠습니다. 지금. 네. 그리고 점심 식사는 뒤에 있는 티켓을 드리시면 되겠고요. 요 사진 찍으시고 이제 점심 식사를 가시기 전에 우리 남가주기교회 임원분들은 나오셔서 그래도 어렵게 모셨으니까 쌤 목사님 모시고 기념사진 찍도록 하겠습니다. 양해 부탁드리겠습니다. 네? 네네. 좀 더. 네. 사진 먼저 찍으시죠.
Oh, yeah.
There was a separate group with the directors of the council.
Okay.